welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're looking at a stack of sources surrounding the Tamil poem, A Cup of Fruit Juice by Jai Zakaran.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating one.
Right, and our mission today is to figure out how, a single piece of literature can completely rewire a teenager's brain.
And provide a lifelong sense of peace, which is huge.
Exactly. I mean, imagine your mind as this dry, dusty landscape. You're thirsty for something substantial, and finding the right book is almost like stumbling into an oasis.
A literal lifesaver.
Yeah. And for Jaya Sekaran, that oasis was the classic work Kuyul Patu, which translates to the Cuckoo Song by the legendary poet Subramania Parathi.
Right.
But what I'm really trying to wrap my head around is the intense desperation here. Like, what drives a 15-year-old to need that profound level of intellectual and emotional refuge in the first place?
Well, I mean, it really comes down to the stark contrast between his internal world and his external reality. In the poem, he describes his early environment as a village without a cuckoo.
Which is such a striking metaphor.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because a cuckoo in Tamil literature often represents pure, unadulterated joy and a beautiful, poetic voice.
Right, and he didn't have that.
No, he was living in a place utterly devoid of it. It was a harsh setting filled with hardship and, well, what he explicitly calls villains.
Wow. So it wasn't just like a lack of art, it was the active presence of a really harsh reality.
Yeah, exactly. When you're surrounded by purely pragmatic, difficult survival, the absence of beauty feels like a physical deprivation.
It hurts.
It does. It created this deep, aching yearning. He was craving a voice of purity that simply didn't exist in his immediate surroundings.
So since that cuckoo isn't just going to magically appear in his village, he actively goes hunting for it, right?
He hits the libraries.
He hits the libraries. But, reading through the sources, it notes he waded through a massive amount of frustrating, sort of backward texts before finally finding Bharathi.
A lot of noise.
Yeah, and I struggle a bit with the idea that he had to read all that bad literature first. I mean, wouldn't finding the oasis right away have saved him a lot of teenage angst?
It might have saved him some angst, sure, but it wouldn't have built the same intellectual scaffolding.
What do you mean?
Well, reading those regressive texts forced him to rebel intellectually. It sharpened his critical thinking. He wasn't just passively consuming words anymore.
He was figuring out what he didn't like.
Exactly. He was learning to identify what felt false or mundane.
Okay, so the contrast is actually what gave the eventual discovery its power.
100%.
It's kind of like when you're scrolling through endless, mindless social media feeds today that just drain your energy.
We've all been there.
Right. And then a single profoundly beautiful piece of art physically stops you in your tracks. It hits harder because of the noise you just sifted through.
That contrast is everything.
Yeah.
So when he finally read Kuyul Patu, he had the critical apparatus to actually recognize its brilliance.
He was ready for it.
He was. Frothy's work didn't just sound pretty. It introduced a radical form of free thought and emotional depth that was completely foreign to his strict village life.
A true scroll stopper.
A major scroll stopper. At 15, Kuyul Patu became more than a poem. Jai Sekaran calls it a wonder, a temple, a refuge.
Well, wait, how does a poem actually provide that kind of refuge? It's one thing to be inspired, but the sources say this gave him absolute artistic grounding and peace of mind.
Right.
What's the mechanism there?
Well, Farathi's work gave him permission to look at human nature and society through a lens of empathy and psychological depth, rather than just raw survival.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it gave him a framework to process his reality.
Yeah.
Instead of just reacting to the villains in his village, he now had the vocabulary to understand them.
And to understand himself, probably.
Exactly. More importantly, to understand himself.
So it gave him an internal sanctuary that the external world couldn't touch.
Precisely. That deep peace of mind he found in Farathi's Temple of Words formed the foundation for his entire life. It's the mechanism that allowed him to evolve from a frustrated teenager in a harsh village into a global artist, poet, and speaker.
Which really makes total sense when you look at his later success. I mean, he went on to integrate a background in psychology, taking these deep insights from Palachi all the way to audiences in America.
Yeah. The literature didn't just inspire him, it fundamentally taught him how to analyze the human condition.
It's incredible.
It really is. Literature acted as the ultimate foundation for his personal growth. That intellectual rebellion in the library ultimately paved the way for a deeply impactful international career.
Rooted in that psychological insight.
Yeah.
It's just amazing how a single poem can be the catalyst for that kind of transformation. It really changes how you look at the media we consume every day.
It definitely makes you more intentional about it.
For sure. So here's something for you to ponder as you go about your day. Look at the spaces in your own life that currently feel like a village without a cuckoo.
Yeah.
You know, those dry, uninspired, or frustrating areas.
Yeah, those empty spaces.
What specific piece of art, literature, or music could you introduce into that void today to completely change its landscape?